The brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp, brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the Brothers Wisp.
Hey everybody, this is Greg with the Brothers Wisps number 160. This is going to be a special one because I've been doing a lot of travel lately, kind of on and off. I got my dates all mixed up, so I forgot that we had a podcast tonight, which means I didn't line anybody else up. That is entirely on me. I apologize. So this is going to be a Greg heavy episode, and by Greg heavy, I mean it's just going to be Greg. So bear that in mind. So this go around, we don't have any new patrons, and that's folks that go to patreon.com/brotherswisps. Throw us a couple bones, you get access to the patron-only Slack. But we do have our sponsor. So brought to you by Sonar, a scalable, intuitive, and comprehensive ISP billing and operational support system. Learn more at sonar.software. We also have towercoverage.com. Tower Coverage is your RF propagation system to empower your network. Real-time data metrics enable your coverage area, reaching your customer base, and more. The industry's best RF propagation mapping system allows website integration for customer sign-up and pre-qualification. Use this data to scientifically plan network expansion and help your WISP succeed. Get a free trial today at towercoverage.com. So, I only have a few things on the list today. A couple of them are hardware related. One of them is kind of more thought-provoking. So I'm going to start out with the hardware related, and that is the Magic SFP, solving the last mile bandwidth issue. So what it is an SFP. It's kind of interesting. I dug in a little bit. It's made by a company called MDS Link. When you go to their website, or even the marketing on the website on here on the show notes, it shows kind of a nice hardened metal cage. Like it looks like a standard SFP, but on the end of it, instead of an optic, it's actually got a coax connection. So really this is kind of a MoCA solution. I think it's MoCA 2.5 is what it supports. They say you could shove it into a 1 gig, a 2.5 gig SFP port. Requires a little bit of extra power. And it basically acts as a MoCA bridge. So it's like an Ethernet bridge over coax, right? So kind of like Ethernet over coax. In an example here, they're taking the SFP, plugging into a switch. They have the internet connection going into a said switch. This then goes through a big coil of coax cable into a splitter. The splitter goes into a couple of different devices. One is a Magic SFP on the other side. It looks to be the exact same SFP on all sides. They just jam that into a MikroTik device, and they're streaming video off of that. And then they have one of the other ports off the splitter going into, a Ruckus access point into the SFP slot on that. And it looks like they're, just doing Wi-Fi off of that or whatever. So it appears to be a solution. Maybe like if you're in an MDU environment and it's already got coax, it's pre-wired for that, but nothing else. Maybe you could use this kind of thing in there. It looks like the retail price is coming in about $125 per one of these SFPs. But remember, in every room, you've also have to have a device that's going to be able to terminate this. They're showing it in say MikroTiks or whatnot, but they also show it going into just a standard media converter, right? So I guess you could use a cheap media converter, jam this into it, and then get an Ethernet port out. In my MDU environments, I like to provide a wireless access, as well as wired ports in all of the areas. So I would probably jam this into some kind of a MikroTik that's got wireless in there. I mean, it's easier if you're controlling the entire RF spectrum in your environment that you're going into. So it's interesting in concept. I'm not sure how many of these you can stick on kind of a single network, if you will, like how many you can split on a single one. It doesn't really say one way or the other. A little bit light on details. They're basically saying that the upload and download are close to symmetrical on this. They're saying depending on what frequency it's centered on, you could do 500 foot to theoretically 1500 foot. I'm sure the modulation rate kicks down and you're not going to get as much throughput. So I don't know, 300 foot to, because they also say challenge distributing bandwidth over the last 300 foot on the WAN side. So there's a little bit of discrepancy in here. Having said that, was talking about the cage design. It looks fine. Looks like it's basically a giant heatsink as well. And some of their pictures, like off the site, they're showing like 3D printed plastic cases on these things. So half the marketing stuff that they're actually showing is prototype devices. So I'm assuming this is a fairly new product. Curious if any of you have played with this in any way. 125. I wonder if you bought these in volume. Wish you could get that price down too. It's not the worst price in the world. It's certainly cheaper than retrofitting like a really old apartment complex, especially if it's multi-floor. Those get really tedious to try and maintain. Also, I wondered if you could put kind of a filter in place, or maybe if this runs in lower enough frequency to where it's not going to interfere with anything else running over the line. Of course, if it's like like the local cable company that's on that wire, they're likely doing digital cable, internet over kind of those same frequencies you're going to attempt to use this thing on. So, I mean, your mileage may vary. Who's to say? I don't know. I'm sure it fits in somewhere. It's interesting. I always am excited when I see devices in interesting form factors like this SFP. I mean, I would give it a swing just to see what it do. Maybe it would be interesting to have a couple in your bag just in case. You could do some interesting problem solving just in case. So what else is on the docket for hardware? We also have the UniFi DreamWall. They're saying we are freeing you. So Ubiquiti is freeing us from the tyranny of the 19-inch rack mount interface. They in their marketing, they go on to say that was developed in 1922 as a standard for Ma Bell to I guess save space, and we have been trapped in that form factor ever since. And so now they are freeing us by mounting something flat to the wall, which isn't that life changing. I've done that sort of thing plenty of times. I'm sure most of the people listening to this have as well, right? Like kind of a nice wall mount enclosure that's sort of flat, usually has a couple of vertical slots for 19-inch rack mount stuff. Usually you're going to stick a router in there, or rather you probably put a switch in the back and then maybe a router in the front, something like that to get all your infrastructure in. The DreamWall, I didn't see anything about pricing, but it looks like it has wireless access built in. So it's a wireless AP on the top of it. It appears to have maybe a 24-port PoE switch. I couldn't really see how many ports were on there, or at least I didn't play it back and pause it to see how many were on there. It also has hard drives, so I'm guessing that's going to be acting as an NVR as well. So you're going to be able to power your UniFi stuff, right? Your wireless access points as well as cameras, pull them in there to be kind of the NVR piece. And I think it also has battery cells that you can jam in the bottom, so it's got UPS protection on it as well. Again, all I have on this thing is the YouTube link, so once more information pops up, it may be available, and I just didn't find it. But another interesting product from Ubiquiti, and specifically in the UniFi universe. I don't know. It's kind of all of your eggs in one basket there, which, if you're doing the Ubiquiti UniFi stuff, it kind of seems like that's the boat you're in anyway. So it may be interesting to some people. I don't know that it's necessarily what I'm looking for, but who's to say? Maybe the new cool thing that comes out. So the last thing I have here on my list is there were some recent court orders for every ISP in the U.S. to block some very specific streaming sites. So it looks like there was a company. Who were they? The Mosh Edery. He's a investor, and he stuck it to some of the credit card companies and said he's gonna, try and lock down people illegally streaming some of his infrastructure, and in particular went after Israel-TV.com, Israel.tv, and SDAROT.tv, with that last apparently being one of the more popular Israeli pirate streaming services with millions of visitors each month. So I'm assuming it's a pay service as well. So Obviously, he wants that to go down. Anyway, they brought it to court. Obviously, the plaintiffs never, or rather the defendants. Yeah, it'd be the defendants, not the plaintiffs. I've watched enough, Judge Judy. I should know this stuff. Anyway, the defendants never showed up, so it just kind of went through. And the judge basically said that every ISP in the U.S. needs to block these domains, as well as any domains that this company happens to register in the future, right? Any new domains, and they all need to be redirected to this very specific website. They want you to do this by hijacking DNS. So I guess on your resolvers, they want you to add this domain and forward it over to zira-usa11025.org, which is going to throw up a splash screen that says this website is no longer available due to copyright infringement, with some additional information. It's interesting to think that they could enforce this. And I kind of don't like the idea of this, right? Because that's, so many questions pop to mind, all right? It's like, well, okay, in my resolvers, I'll, redirect those specific domains. Well, what about people that are doing security over DNS? Like the new technologies that are coming out where your browser will automatically secure the DNS communications. Or what if they're going over a VPN? And also, whenever they're coming up with new domain names, how are we supposed to track that, right? Who's gonna pay to have all of that done, right? Is somebody gonna start a service out there which tracks all these companies and all the domain names? And I mean, it is so fast, cheap, and easy to register a new domain name. Obviously, if they're pirating and they want to take money for said services, if they're constantly switching names, it's going to be hard to hang on to that stuff. But really, a simple VPN would bypass this. It doesn't even have to be complex encryption. If you just have a PPTP VPN to something, any of the millions of VPN services that seem to exist out in the world, as long as you're VPN into something, outside of the U.S. And so these this supposed list of carriers, well, I think they had named like 98 or 100 major carriers in the U.S. And they said, just because you weren't named in the list doesn't mean you're not excluded from this. You also have to do it if you're operating in the U.S. So it's just wacky, kind of all around. We've sort of seen stuff like this. Somebody was talking on the NANOG list about how this is a civil case, right? And it's like, do they even really have the jurisdiction in a civil case to tell every ISP in the US to do this stuff? And it also kind of brings up the concept of undue burden, which I think was a 1946 ruling. Let's see, I've got a Wikipedia link here. It says, in short, the undue burden standard states that a legislature cannot make a particular law that is too burdensome or restrictive of one's fundamental rights. Too burdensome. It just seems impossible, cat and mouse, to keep up with this stuff. And it also makes you wonder, is this going to be kind of the de facto for all of these cases moving forward, where the plaintiff just doesn't bother to show up? They're just going to try and blanket, tell everybody to block this stuff. I don't know. It's wacky. Everybody I've talked to so far has basically said, it's like, hey, what are you doing about this? The answer is nothing. I'm just ignoring it until, either I'm forced to, I get something specific to me that says I need to, or, we see some more clear wording, right? Something out there that actually says we really need to do this. To me, it just seems more like FUD campaign, fear, uncertainty, doubt, trying to scare people, which I'm not advocating for piracy. That's not the route I'm going. I'm not saying that it should exist and we definitely need to do it and all blah, 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 and rah, rah, rah. I'm just saying it sounds like it would take a lot of time and energy to put this in place. Like what technologies are ISPs expected to maintain to take care of all this? Are we gonna have to do deep packet inspection, start digging through all this stuff? It just seems a little bit wacky, wild to try and enforce this stuff. I don't know. That's just me. That's just my opinion. That's just my thinking on the subject, as it were. I'd be curious to see what fallout happens from this, if any, right? Probably nothing. Most likely, I would assume nothing. All right. Well, it's at this point that I'm going to tell you that I have exhausted my list, so I plan to just have a stream of consciousness for a moment, and we'll sort of see where everything goes. I have recently been doing some travel, so I was in Dallas for a week, and then I was at home for a week. Then I was in Denver for a week, although I get to bring my wife with me for a little bit of that, so some of that was play. It wasn't all work, right? We had a good time. Denver's got a lot of cool people. It was really cold. They were like, wow, it's such a beautiful spring day while I'm over here freezing. It's ridiculous. You people are strange. Anyway, then I was a week at home again, and then it was a week in Argentina. I went to Buenos Aires, BA. I was lucky enough to fly business class, which means I had a lay flat seat. And the fun part about a lay flat seat is your feet kind of funnel at the end. So it does truly lay flat. Your feet funnel at the end, and me being 6'3" with size 14 shoes, I still didn't really fit. So that was enjoyable. I learned if I take my shoes off, I can kind of turn my feet in a little bit. But basically, I was what was it? I was rolling around like a rotisserie chicken. So I figured out like I could turn sideways, I could then turn back after like I got gotten too comfortable for too long. But I eventually learned to sleep, which was really nice because some of the folks going with me just went to economy and they didn't sleep a wink on that 10.5-hour flight. So I definitely enjoyed the business class travel. But once we got there, it was a pretty cool place. I learned a lot, interesting culture. The company I was going down there and visiting, most of the people interact in English with other folks fairly regularly, so the English was really good, which is amazing because my Spanish is really terrible. So we got by. Google Translate's your friend. It's got the Google Translate app where you can hold it up over text and it will translate in line, so it'll kind of blur out the text that was there and then put it in English. And there were some fun translations. I remember we were at a pizza place, and one of the pizzas translated to, I think, Mexican bastard. I'm not sure what that pizza consisted of. I just know that was the name of it. But their pizza was really buttery there. Delicious. I mean, I could feel my arteries clogging. It's delicious. The desserts were really good. Everybody kept saying, eat the meat, eat the steak. And we eventually went to some steak place. And I'm not a steak guy. Like, I've somehow or another, I've lost my taste for steak. And so I tried a little bit. We did it kind of family style. We got a bunch of stuff and went around. And it was maybe okay, but man, I did not enjoy it. All the other stuff, though. Everything else I ate there, I really enjoyed. So that's no knock against it. I think it's not for me, right? It's like I've kind of lost my taste for that. But overall, it was a good experience. I really enjoy doing that stuff. I love enablement. So it was 2 days of education, 3 days of hackathon, and then we jumped a plane and came back. Looks like at some point in the future, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to be doing it in Malaysia. I'm going to Kuala Lumpur, which is an even longer flight. So I really hope I get business class for that one as well, because otherwise I'm going to recommend somebody else goes, because I don't think I can handle being cramped up in there for that long of a flight. I did it to Australia, and I don't want to do it ever again if I can possibly help it. Let's see. Do I know anything else going on kind of in the IT world? I've been doing more automations as per the usual. Nothing too terribly interesting lately. It's mostly been around kind of configuration as code. The idea that where you not necessarily on the network side, it can be on the network side, but you have all of your configurations sort of over here, and you're defining what the state looks like, and you're pushing that into various devices or systems. So I've been doing a lot more of that. And I think I will continue doing more of that, more ServiceNow sort of work. I really wish, if there are any ServiceNow developers on here, I would love to pay you to do some custom integrations for me. I am not a ServiceNow developer, nor will I ever be. So if you are, or you have somebody that's go-to for you, give me a shout. I'm willing to pay somebody to make some stuff happen. I want to do basically configuration as code. So in ServiceNow, it's an ITSM. It's kind of like it could be your ticket system, your problem system, as well as you can have users go in there and order stuff. You know, they can order like hardware or whatever. One of the cool things is they have a service catalog that you can add items to, and they can order something like build me a virtual machine, or, you know, add this firewall rule. So really what you're doing is you're having them fill in forms, clicking submit. They have a really good approval system in there, right? You can go to some other person in the organization or their group, they'll approve it, and then it calls your automation. So for me, I'm calling the Ansible automation platform over the API, fires that off, and then I perform some kind of automation. But there's several kind of steps you have to do inside of ServiceNow. You have to create the ServiceNow catalog item. You have to create a workflow as well, right? So the catalog item is going to refer to the workflow. Then the workflow will refer to a REST, you know, because it's making a RESTful API call, a REST section, right? Where you've got kind of all of the stuff sort of built out. And really all you're doing is you're collecting a bunch of variables and you're passing them over. And then from there, it's sort of standardized, but those 3 steps have to be customized per service catalog item that you want. Like the underlying system where it connects to AAP, you know, the Ansible automation platform, that's standardized. It's the same every time. But those first 3, you have to kind of reinvent the wheel every single time. And it's copy and paste, but it's still tedious. So I'd love to have a Git repository where I just build little template files, you know, copy and paste, boom, jam those out really fast. And then I have my automation take that and then shove it into ServiceNow. So it creates those catalog items. So if I want to make an adjustment to a service catalog item, I want to add an extra field, I just go to my Git repository, I update the template file, create that extra little thing, and then tell the automation to push it and wipe my hands and walk away, right? Go eat a sandwich. So I'd love to be able to do that, but also just to create them from scratch, it would be so much faster, so much easier to do it that way as well, right? To just copy and paste a template, make a quick adjustment here or there, and then have the automation push that. Oh man, that would be a dream. So I would love to have somebody kind of help me flesh out that piece, because I've done like incidents and problems and written to their CMDB, the configuration management database, where you basically keep a list of your hosts and all that kind of stuff in there. So I've reading and written to all those things. Well, that's through some Ansible modules that make it really easy, right? In this other case, I would need to be going like straight into the ServiceNow API, I guess, probably in specific ways. And they're actually, ServiceNow just tweaked their API, which makes it even more difficult to like change things. So they made it like so that you can't through the API change status on incidents and stuff like that, which is bonkers, insane. I don't know why you would do that. I mean, you should be able to permission-wise change that stuff in the system, right? Why whole hog blanket remove it? It seems ridiculous. So it breaks a lot of people's workflows, you know. Annoying, but there it is. So I'm curious if you would still be able to like create these other items or modify them, right? Like have they tweaked that out of existence? I don't know. Curiosity. Anyway, if you have any extra information on that, I would love to hear it. So I believe kind of that's all I've got going. I've just been traveling or prepping for customer calls or being on customer calls. So I've just been really busy. It looks like travel is going to stop for a while for me. Thank goodness. I don't want to get burned out. I am not saying I'm there, but I can see it. I can see it a little off in the distance. So I want to kind of head that off of the past. Luckily, you know, our people are great, and you know, I could just say, hey, let me not travel for a minute, and I won't have to travel for a minute. So that's good. So I can catch my breath, which is really nice. Whew. All right. Well, I guess that's probably enough stream of consciousness, because I really don't think people find this very interesting. So I'll go ahead and cut it short. If you guys want to have any specific guests, please let me know. And since I won't be going all over the place like a crazy amount. I should be able to keep everything together and actually get some of this stuff coordinated right now. Yeah. Any questions, comments, any of that good stuff, you can fire them off to greg@gregsoul.com or contact us at thebrotherswisp.com. It all comes to me anyway. It's all the same. I also blog regularly at gregsoul.com. Pop in there. I have another podcast where I talk to interesting people, trying to trace a path to where they've been. It's called Why Am I? So ymipod.com if you are interested in that, which you may or may not be, but hey, you put that stuff out in the universe and see if it comes back. Thank you for listening. I know this was a short one, but maybe short is better. Maybe you guys get tired of talking to us, or rather listening to us talk to you or to each other, whatever it happens to be. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
You are missing ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.